Israel releasing drone video showing some of what the military says has been found during its operation in the West Bank. The Israel Defense Force is saying this is a mosque that was being used for terrorist operations with, as you see there, photos of fallen fighters hanging on the walls. The Israeli military began its large-scale operation in the West Bank Wednesday, targeting the Hamas terror group, saying troops found plenty of weapons, ammo, and roadside bombs. Popping up this live image right here, you can actually see a live image over the West Bank. Yesterday, around this time, you can actually see tanks there in the distance. Right now, not seeing much there in the West Bank. Do want to talk more about all of this here and break it all down. Let's bring in Nimrod Goren, the Senior Fellow for Israeli Affairs at the Middle East Institute. Thank you so much for taking the time, as always, to be here with us today.
Thank you.
All right, so first off, I do want to talk about this operation going on there in the West Bank. Can you explain what Israel's overall goal and really the operations there, what they do aim to do?
Sure. And first, we need to remember that the situation in the West Bank is very different than the situation in the Gaza Strip, because in the Gaza Strip, Hamas has been controlling since 2007, and the West Bank is under the control of the Palestinian Authority, which is actually a rival fraction in Palestinian politics to Hamas. So the situation is different. I think what Israel has been concerned over the last months, when the attention of the Israeli military has been given to Gaza, to Lebanon, is that the terror level coming out of the West Bank, or the infrastructure that is geared toward producing future terror attacks on Israel, has been on the rise within the West Bank, and that there has been growing involvement of outside actors like Iran, like others, in trying to foster capacities, smuggle ammunition, and therefore I think the motivation of Israel by doing what it's doing now is to basically prevent any scenario that whatever happened from Gaza in October 7th could happen from the West Bank, and to make sure that the level of Israeli operations that has been undergoing in the West Bank for years does not go down and does not let terror rise up. So it's a short ad hoc operation, but is part of a longer process of activities or military activities of Israel in the West Bank, which already caused quite a bit of tensions in the time before the war in Gaza began.
And I do want to pop up that drone video once again that we were talking about just moments ago. That is actually a look from the Israel Defense Forces that they provided inside of that mosque. Is any of that surprising to hear that you do have these terrorist operations going on inside of a site like a mosque? Again, you can see that drone video that was provided by the IDF.
Yeah, so these claims are not new, and you also hear it when we follow the war in Gaza, the use of civilian population or infrastructure. Of course, on a drone video itself, it's difficult to draw conclusions. We need to know and get from all the sources the full information. It does also reflect how difficult it is to conduct this type of warfare and activities within spaces that are, based on civilian population and infrastructure. And that's something that Israel needs to take into account. I think looks into that as it shapes its activities. It also means that Israel needs to take into account its own citizens that are living in the West Bank. Again, one of the differences between West Bank and Gaza. In Gaza, there are no Israeli civilian centers. In the West Bank, there are the settlements. And we saw more and more settler violence becoming an issue and becoming a source of extremism, tensions, counterattacks going back and forth. We also saw Itamar Ben-Gvir going to Al-Aqsa Mosque. All these things that are part of looking into our side, into the Israeli side, into our coalition, are causing and fueling the tensions, while the government should look into how cool things off, engage with the Palestinian Authority, and find a way to promote peacemaking rather than additional conflict.
We actually heard from Khalid Marshal, a top Hamas official, calling for suicide terror attacks and bombings against Israel in the West Bank. Is that still a tactic that is used overall? Do we see that widely used in the Middle East?
And the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, of course, we remember years in which that was a devastating tool. In the 90s, in the early 2000s, Israel is going on buses in Tel Aviv, Jerusalem. We're constantly concerned of that, and many lives have been lost. It shaped a lot of the Israeli military reactions to try and stop that. And eventually it stopped. And for years we didn't have it. We didn't see those. And there was a strategic decision, I think, also on behalf of Hamas not to go there. It also paid a price for doing that. Just a couple of weeks ago, we did see an incident in Tel Aviv in which a suicide bomber detonated itself, and luckily there were not a lot of damage caused, but that raised a lot of flags and a lot of concern in Israel that we are going back to that mode of action, especially when Hamas has now limited capacity to fire rockets at Israel because of the war. That was the tool it was using for years instead of the suicide bombing. So I think part of the Israeli motivation for the activities that we mentioned before is to make sure that these threats are contained. There are also pressure, I think, within the Palestinian society against what Hamas says it wants to do, also from the Palestinian Authority. And of course, the President Abbas of the Palestinians was all the time against these attacks, and I think he said it again. So there's no consensus on that within the Palestinian society, and I hope these statements will not turn into reality, because, again, that will be another deteriorating factor in the already gloomy reality we have in the region.
Let's talk a little bit more about what's going on over in Gaza, because we know earlier on this week, over the course of maybe a little more than 24 hours, you had a hostage who was rescued and is safe. You also had the IDF find the body of an IDF soldier who was killed on October 7th, and then his body dragged over there into Gaza and held hostage. My question is, with these hostage rescues and recoveries, does it appear that maybe Israel has some new information where they might actually know more about the whereabouts of those who are still held hostage by Hamas?
The release of the hostages is the #1 priority for most of the Israeli public these days. And we're talking about 107 people still dead or alive, held in Gaza by Hamas for almost 11 months, almost at the 1-year mark, with growing concern about the fate, about how much longer can they survive. So that's what the Israeli public wants to see the hostages back home. And of course, military operations are a tool that we would like to see more of, bringing back hostages. And the longer Israel's presence within the Gaza Strip, the more control it has, the more intelligence it gets. I sense that there is more ability to at least understand what's the whereabouts of some of the hostages. Not always it's feasible to get to them, but at least there's more information about it. But now military officials say time and time again that Israelis cannot rely on military operation to bring back the vast majority of these 107 people. And therefore, that's why the security establishment, the broader public, and large chunks of the political establishment are looking for a ceasefire and hostage release deal as a way to bring back not one here, one there, but rather dozens of hostages back to their families, back home.
There are still concerns. There are reports that there's the possibility of this imminent attack by Iran, a direct attack on Israel. It's been talked about since the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, but now it seems like really the concerns are heating up once again. So my question for you, with the failed attack that happened with Hezbollah over the weekend, where Israel was able to essentially foil that attack before it happened, does that make Iran think twice before launching a direct attack on Israel, or does Iran care about that?
First, I think Iran thinks twice, because it's already been a month since the assassination, and the expectation in Israel was that the retaliation could be quite immediate. There was a lot of diplomacy actions taken also by the US in terms of deterring Iran, in trying to jumpstart ceasefire negotiations in Gaza, to give some sort of reasoning to postpone. And Iran does seem to have postponed its retaliation, giving the green light to Hezbollah and try to do their thing that didn't end very well from their side. Again, like in April when Iran attacked Israel, this time again, Israel managed to foil the attack. So Iran has committed itself to retaliate, but retaliation can take different forms, different times, in different places. And I think what we see over the last month in the region is that all the sides try to take actions that are below the threshold of a full-fledged regional war. Nobody wants to see this big escalation that I think the region and the international community are afraid of. The consequences will be dire to everybody. So when retaliation is being calculated, it's being done in a way that will be limited, could be contained. And I think eventually Iran will try to retaliate because it's promised to and it's line with their strategy, but not in the way that maybe we expected 2 or 3 weeks ago, of leading to a real battle between Israel and Iran. I think it will be of a different nature. Hopefully it will be contained and foiled as well.
All right. Nimrod Goren, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. Anything else you want to add about really any of this before I let you go?
I think just to mention that the ceasefire talks in Gaza are still ongoing, and there are teams going back and forth from Cairo, Americans, Egyptians, Qataris, Israelis are all trying to figure out a formula. And I think that's the way out, not only in terms of the ceasefire or the hostage release, but also in terms of diffusing tensions along the Israel-Lebanese border and containing the tensions in the region as a whole. I think that should be the priority of policymakers in the US, but also in the region, to take these negotiations that have been taking place for 7-8 months and really push them beyond the finish line and get the deal done.
All right. Thank you again for taking the time to join us here and provide some insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And I do want to take you out to this post here coming in on Twitter or X, depending what you call it, from the Israel War Room with a photo there. They are talking about the elimination of Palestinian Islamic Jihad terror leader Muhammad Yaber, head of operations in Ner Shams and Tulkarm, being hailed as a major achievement there in Israel. We did learn about this just a short time ago, but again, that is a photo of the man who has now been taken out, eliminated there by Israel. As we get more information about all of this, we'll make